Good day, everyone. I am Vicente Kalaw. I am a graduate school student of the University of Santo Tomas, Manila, Philippines, and currently working at Ifugao State University in Ifugao, Philippines. I will be discussing my research on local cuisine attraction in the rice terraces of the Cordilleras, a World Heritage Site of the Philippines. The rice terraces of the Cordillera Administrative Region has been recognized and accredited as a Cultural World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Thus, it is one of the areas actively promoted by the Department of Tourism as a premier tourist destination. The rice terraces of the Cordilleras are located at the northern part of the Philippines. World Heritage Sites are defined as properties that must display outstanding universal value. As of August 2022, there are a total of 1,154 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Out of this, 9 are found in the Philippines, and one of the sites is the rice terraces of the Cordilleras in the Cordillera Administrative Region. Of the 9 World Heritage Sites of the Philippines, 4 of which are Spanish churches, 2 are national parks, 1 wildlife sanctuary, 1 historic Spanish old town, and the rice terraces, which is the rice terraces of the Cordilleras, which was inscribed in 1995. This paper investigated the local cuisine attraction and the major factors influencing the food preferences and consumption of tourists visiting the rice terraces of the Cordilleras based on the socio-cultural and demographic factors, food-related personality traits, and motivational factors. There are 5 research objectives, namely, what are the socio-cultural and demographic profile of tourists visiting the rice terraces of the Cordilleras? What are the preferred local cuisine by tourists visiting the rice terraces of the Cordilleras? Are there any significant differences in the tourists' local food preferences and consumption with respect to age, gender, educational background, monthly income, occupation, marriage status, and place of origin? What is the relationship of food-related personality traits to tourists' local food preferences and consumption? What is the relationship of the tourists' local food preferences and consumption with respect to motivational factors? The research seeks to prove 3 hypotheses. The first hypothesis states that there are no significant differences in tourists' local food preferences and consumption with respect to their demographic profile. The second hypothesis states that there are no significant relationship between the tourists' local food preferences and consumption and the food-related personality traits of food neophobia and food neophilia. And the third hypothesis states that there are no significant relationship between the tourists' local food preferences and consumption and the motivational factors. This illustration represents the conceptual framework of the research. The diagram shows that the local cuisine attraction and tourists' food preferences and consumption are directly correlated to the social, cultural, and demographic factors, food-related personality traits, and motivational factors. For the research design, subjects, and study site, descriptive research technique was utilized in the study, and 300 tourists visiting the rice terraces of the Cordilleras were chosen through purposive sampling. For the research instrument, survey questionnaire was used as the primary tool in gathering the data. However, informal interview was likewise conducted to further clarify and substantiate the data gathered by the respondents. For the data gathering procedure, the questionnaire used in the study consisted of 3 parts. The first part focused on the socio-cultural and demographic profile of the tourists. The second focused on the preferred local cuisine and the motivational factors influencing the local food preferences and consumption of tourists visiting the site. The third part of the questionnaire dealt with the influence of food-related personality traits of tourists. For data analysis, SPSS statistics package was used to analyze the quantitative data. Descriptive analysis and inferential analysis were used to examine the participants' response rates on each section of the questionnaire. For the results and discussions, the table shows that 62.7% of the 300 respondents were male, majority were college graduates, and most of the respondents were Filipinos. 231 out of 300 respondents were between the age of 18 to 30 years old, followed by 13.3% who were between the age of 31 to 40 years old. This shows that most of the respondents were relatively young. This table shows that many of the respondents were earning less than $500 a month, while the other respondents were earning more than $500 a month. This table manifests that most of the respondents were employed and single. This table discloses that Filipino food is the most preferred cuisine by tourists visiting the rice terraces of the Cordilleras. The study reveals that Filipino cuisine is the most preferred since majority of the respondents when the survey was conducted were domestic tourists. Based on the survey instrument, it is revealed that the cuisine preferences of tourists is directly related to their country of origin. This table answers the question on the willingness of respondents to eat exotic local food. But what is exotic food in the first place? An exotic food is generally defined as food that's not native to one's country. It is applied to culinary items which are considered unusual, novel, or taboo from the perspective of an individual's native culture. The main scores of the study discloses that tourists are much willing to eat stewed native chicken, smoked sausage, sauteed and boiled mollusks, fried or simmered river fish, except for braised snake and braised dog meat. This shows that all 6 listed exotic food items are accepted by the tourists as edible food except for dog meat. Dog in most societies are referred to as man's best friend. Thus, it is considered an act of cannibalism for one to devour his or her kind, so much more a family member. This table exhibits the willingness of tourists to eat the common local food items sold in the region. The common food listed on the table refers to the typical and conventional food items served in the local restaurants. If you look at the table, dinuguan is the only food item with a mean score of 3.47 out of the 10 listed common food items. This may be due to the fact that consumption of animal blood is cultural and religious in nature. Nevertheless, the overall mean score of 4.08 indicates that tourists of the rice terraces of the Cordilleras are willing to consume the local common food items served in the area. This table shows if there are no significant differences in the tourists' local food preferences and consumption with respect to their socio-cultural and demographic profile. The table reveals that there are significant differences in the willingness of respondents to consume local cuisine items when grouped by education and nationality. The willingness of respondents to consume local cuisine do not differ in terms of gender, income, age, occupation, and marital status. The data showing the relationship between education and food preferences and consumption supports a study conducted by Fraser, which revealed that better educated individuals are more selective of their food consumption than those who are less educated. This table presents the relationship between the tourists' local food preferences and consumption and the food personality traits of food neophobia and food neophilia. Food neophobia is defined as the reluctance to try new food items. Food neophilia refers to the characteristics of individuals who are willing to try new food items. The table shows that there are significant relationships between tourists' local food preferences and consumption and food-related personality traits. This indicates that the tourists' food-related personality traits has bearing on tourists' willingness to consume exotic and common local food in the region. This table supports the findings in the previous slide. This table indicates that 74.18% of the tourists classify themselves as food variety seekers, while 25.84% classify themselves as non-variety seekers. This table likewise indicates that more Filipinos are much willing to consume novelty food items compared to non-novelty food seekers. The table additionally shows that there are more Korean and Japanese food variety seekers than non-variety seekers. Moreover, it illustrates that there are more American food variety seekers than non-variety seekers. The result is consistent with the study conducted by Olabi that Americans have been found to be less neophobic in terms of food consumption. This table exhibits the relationship between the tourists' local food preferences and consumption with the 9 motivational factors. Using chi-square test, the table conveys that there is significant relationship between food consumption of tourists with exciting experience and authentic experience. This means that tourists' motivation for having exciting and authentic experience have a bearing in their food preferences and consumption. The other motivational factors have no bearing with tourists' willingness to consume local food. The table indicates that tourists are motivated to consume local food items in the World Heritage Site of the Cordilleras to experience something new, exciting, and original made in the area. The tourists were asked how the food uniqueness will encourage them to visit the region. A 5-point Likert scale with response categories ranging from 1, which is equivalent to very little, to 5, which is equivalent to very much, was utilized to measure the tourists' responses. The survey result discloses that 47% are very much willing to return, with 33.3% much willing to return because of the region's unique food items. This can be construed that tourists are willing to consume local food products not for health and sanitary reasons, but for its unique taste, color, aroma, and texture. Based on the following study, the following can be concluded. Sociocultural and demographic variables have significant effect on the local food preferences and consumption of tourists. Tourists are willing to consume any local food served as long as it provides them the opportunity to experience something exciting and authentic. Tourists' local food preferences and consumption are positively related to educational level and nationality. Food variety seeking trait has a substantial effect on the food preferences and consumption of food by tourists. For the recommendations, the Regional Tourism Office needs to familiarize tourists about the Cordilleran food, highlighting its nutritional value. Additional food items had to be offered to provide tourists with options to choose from. Regional Tourism Office can promote Cordilleran food by spearheading regional gastronomic tours. Food items that are considered to be culturally and religiously offensive, such as dog meat and dinuguan, has to be taken out of the menu. With that, I say thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening. Please take care, everyone.